Ladies and gentlemen, boys and pearls, welcome to the third episode of the Bearded Purl Podcast. I'm your host Caleb, and I'm coming to you from my home in Kohler, Wisconsin, where I live with my partner Justin and our two cats, Buster and Daffodil. Today is Monday, June 15th, 2020. In today's episode, I'm going to chat a little bit about catching up over the last few weeks since we've last talked. I'm going to share a little bit of things that we've been doing in the garden, some things that we've been working on in the kitchen as well. I'm going to share a little bit of stash enhancement or Pearls Gone Wild, and then finally some Etsy shop news at the very end. So if you would like to stick around and see some of the fun bags that we've got in the shop, that's going to be at the end. So it's been a very challenging couple of weeks since we've last chatted. I hope all of you are aware of what is going on in the United States and worldwide in regards to racism. I am by no means an expert on the subject or how to properly educate and learn and grow to be able to actively fight against racism, but I'm going to briefly talk about it here because it's something that everyone should have on the top of their mind, because it's a human decency issue, it's a human rights issue, it's an equality issue, and it doesn't matter who you are, where you live, what your political affiliations are, what your religious beliefs are or are not. You should care about human decency and equality for every single person on this planet. And what the last few weeks have shown is that there are many people that do not, either out of sheer ignorance, either out of lack of human decency, or just complete disregard to the topic as a whole. Whatever that may be, it is up to every individual human being to do their part to make the society we live in and the world we live in better. That should be a common goal for everyone. Human rights and equality are indisputable. It is not controversial that everyone should have the same opportunities in life and be treated equally and fairly in life, no matter who they are, where they come from, what their backgrounds are, what they look like. It is not controversial. You cannot argue against human rights or equality. It's just not on the table. And so the last few years, especially more so in the last few weeks, I have been on a personal journey to not only educate myself about how to be actively anti-racist, but how to support people of color and elevate their voices and make their lives better and equal, and how to actively fight systems and rule. I lose my train of thought. How to actively fight systems and different institutionalized society practices to raise up people of color and to elevate people of color and to make that equality happen in my life and those I can around me. It is a marathon, not a sprint. So this is a journey. It is not something that we are going to be able to change overnight. It is not something that we are going to be able to change collective minds overnight. And the fact that it is 2020 and we have to try and have the conversation, the discussions, the discourse to justify equality and human existence is baffling to me. But we are clearly in a place where that needs to happen. And I myself, as a white male, even though I am gay, experience white privilege. It was something that I was systematically born into, and I have to actively work against that. It is again, a journey and a path that we all need to actively be on to make sure that everyone, especially people of color, have the equal rights and are treated the same way that every single person on this planet should be treated. It is indisputable. There is more genetic diversity among 2 fruit flies than there are among 2 people from different nations, different countries, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different skin colors, than 2 fruit flies. That is because as a race, the singular human race, we have over thousands of years genetically diversified so much that you can take any 2 people in across the world, side by side, genetically compare them, and they are 84% similar. At least 84 to 94% similar. And these are things that I learned while I was studying psychology. I have a degree in psychology, and we had to take courses through our educational careers on the psychology of diversity and the psychology of prejudice and inclusion and race and sex. It was just part of the practice. And that was one thing that always stuck out in my mind, is that 2 fruit flies are genetically more diverse than 2 random human beings. And I just want everyone to keep in mind that the process of actively becoming anti-racist, because it's not enough to be non-racist, is a long one. It is a tough one. It can be challenging. It can be frustrating. It can be maddening. It can be completely disheartening. But it is something that we need to push through, that discomfort, those challenges, those feelings. We need to actively work to raise our collective people of color to the same equality and human decency and standards and rights that we all want to be a part of across the world, not just in the United States. And the senseless killings and murders that are happening by the institutions that are meant to serve and protect every citizen or individual are the ones that are actively oppressing and murdering and holding back those people that we need to protect. We need to help eliminate racism. It is just baffling that we are in a day and age where we have so many opportunities to be whatever we want. So I ask all of you watching to be kind. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to those who don't have the same ideas, values, beliefs as you. To those who may not look like you. It takes so much energy to instill hate and anger and inequality than it does to be kind and to be equal and to be human. That's not to say that there are people out there who will never grasp that concept, because there are. But we need to now associate and communicate and educate those on the journey, those who are willing and ready and already on the path to fight racism. And again, I am not an expert on this, but these are just things that I have found on my journey. And I am so thankful that I have people in my life that are able to be there as resources. When I have questions, they're able to help when I can't articulate what I'm trying to say. And they are forgiving and understanding, because I do not know everything, even though sometimes I think I do. and that's okay, because it's part of learning. It's part of growth. You need to push through that challenge, that discomfort, and have that open mind and be kind to move forward and to progress. And we need to understand the stories. We need to listen. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should be using them proportionately. Listening, learning, educating, then communicating. We need to understand the past before we can change the future. And that's as deep as I'm going to get into it this time. I think, it is something that we should actively be working to fight against, no matter who you are, where you are, what your stance is. It is a human rights and equality issue that we should all be concerned about. And I just hope that everyone is trying to do something. You don't have to be active on social media. You don't have to be protesting. You don't have to be having these difficult conversations with people of opposing viewpoints to be making that journey for yourself. We must individually actively work to fight racism before anything else. Because if we don't systematically change it within ourselves, how are we supposed to collectively change it as a society? And there are amazing, amazing voices out there, especially those who are people of color, that can articulate and explain and teach how to actively fight racism much better than I can. And I have a few great resources that I've been using, and I'll make sure that if any of you would like those resources, just reach out to me either in the comments or in a message on Ravelry. Just let me know, and I will be happy to share those and have these conversations with you. I hope that we can all just be a part of this journey together for the betterment of our society and of our world. It has been too long that we have overlooked these things. So I am going to conclude that with just saying, be kind. Be kind. And among all of this, there are things that have been going on in my life personally that have just been really challenging. But there's also been really good things too. I am officially returning to full-time work as of today, and after about 8 weeks or so, due to COVID-19 and our team being at a reduced hours per week, we are getting back into full-time work, and that's a good feeling, and it's really nice to be able to get back to that. And the paycheck isn't bad either, because working at 50% hours and salary isn't fun. But I'm still glad to be able to have the job I have and be able to do the work that I'm doing, because it's important. And so that's one good thing that's come out of the last few weeks, is that we're now back to full-time. We've been doing a lot of stuff in the gardening department at our house the last few weeks as well. We have done most of the big work and the big I would say kind of landscape remodeling work that we've been doing ourselves, that we're going to be doing for the rest of this year, and now the rest of it is just maintenance. It's been kind of a big undertaking that we didn't necessarily plan on doing this year, but we were both home and given the time and the opportunity to do so. So it's always great to be able to work on those projects together with your partner, even through the good times and the bad times. I am very much one of those people that is just an idealist, and I have an idea. I don't necessarily go through and properly plan something out before I just dive right in. And Justin is very much the opposite and the methodical thinker and planner, and often gets paralyzed with decisions, whereas I just free will, willy-nilly will dig things up and move things around and plant stuff in the garden. And it's kind of how I work with my knitting too. But in my work life, I'm kind of the opposite. So I like to focus on the details and the the planning aspects of certain things. But at home, I just like to kind of let loose and go wild. But so we've been doing a lot of that great gardening stuff outside, and it's been a lot of fun. And we have on the side of our property, we planted 21 peonies when we first moved in, and this is going to be their third year. Um, yeah, their third year. And so they're all blooming right now, and it's absolutely beautiful and marvelous. And I have unofficially renamed, because on the side of our property there's a through street. It's not quite wide enough to be an alley, but you can fit two cars side by side, kind of. So it's more of a through street through that side of the neighborhood. But I've unofficially renamed it Peony Lane, and I cut a bunch this morning that I'm going to bring over to my mom because I think she'll really enjoy them. But how beautiful and large, and the fragrance is just unreal. But there are so many different colors and styles, and they're just amazing. So they're all starting to bloom right now, and it's really great to see our neighbors stop by and talk about them and get them engaged. And I think that's a really fun part about gardening, is that not only do you get to experience it and be a part of it yourself, but you can share it with others, and you can share that beauty and that joy and that work with others. And I think that's a really fun aspect of gardening as well, is that kind of community or collective piece of it that makes it so fun. And along with peonies, it is now rhubarb season, and we took a rhubarb division from my parents' plant. And rhubarb, for those of you who don't know, is a type of vegetable that looks like celery but tastes like a tart green apple. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. But it's primarily used, at least in the United States, in a lot of sweet things. Some people do tend to kind of roast it like a parsnip or a carrot in the oven. I haven't really used it a lot in savory applications, but more so sweet stuff. So the last week I made a rhubarb crumble pie, and it was amazing. I definitely will make it again before the season is up, and I will for sure share that recipe in the Ravelry group in the show notes. And I forgot to mention, but you can find me on Ravelry, Instagram, and YouTube as The Bearded Purl. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want, if you enjoy this stuff, and be sure to check out the Ravelry group. There's lots of fun giveaways that are going to be going on, and that's where I share all my show notes. So if you have any questions, be sure to check them out there, and I'll include the fun recipes too. So for sure I'll include the recipe for the pie because it was amazing, and it was really simple to throw together for a weeknight dessert. And then a friend of mine on Instagram actually shared with me a recipe from Smitten Kitchen, and it was for a rhubarb infused gin or vodka. I had vodka on hand, so I did that, but I just took some rhubarb stalks, cut them up, and then I also took some ginger, a little bit of sugar, and lemon peel, and then you basically pour vodka over that in a jar, and you give it a shake every other day or so for a few weeks, and then it infuses the flavors into the alcohol, and it's really fun for summer cocktails, and it's got this really awesome color. But so you can see the color, because the rhubarb was a reddish pink color. The color is now kind of leaching out into the vodka, so it's got this kind of fun blushy pink. But you can see the lemon peel and the ginger, and it's so good, so good. So happy I tried it. But yeah, so in a couple of weeks I'll strain out the bits and pieces, and then use this for fun summer drinks. So that's been fun, and I'll include that recipe in the show notes as well. So that's kind of what we've been doing in the garden and in the kitchen, and yeah, it's just been really busy. Another thing that happened in the last few weeks, unfortunately, my great aunt on my father's side passed away on Saturday, and she was an amazing individual. She was a pioneer of sorts for our family, at least. She was my dad's father's sister, and she was a lesbian and kind of actively fought to do her own thing and go on her own path, and she sort of broke free of the confines of society where we live and the familial norms, and she was just a free spirit and a wonderful human being. And she was 98 years old, and her partner passed away unfortunately a few years ago. um, but it's been great to hear all of the amazing stories about her and how she transitioned from being kind of oppressed by what society should think she should be, to not caring and going off and being a successful and amazing individual and promoting equality and justice for those who couldn't do it themselves. So, um, unfortunately, she passed away, but she lived a long, amazing, wonderful life, and she was an amazing human being, and she will be fondly remembered by many, many, many people. Um, but yeah, so it's been a challenging couple of weeks, and there's been ups and downs and good things and bad things, but that's life, folks. It's not always going to be sunshine and butterflies, and we just need to work through that. Um, yeah, it's been interesting for sure. But moving into the knitting and the crafting, which has been something that I have been actively turning to for a little bit of meditation and some thinking, and using it as a way to process some of the thoughts and the things that I'm thinking about, and some of the learning and kind of mental refreshing that I need to keep along on this journey. I purchased some yarn that I'll talk about, but I have two really fun finished objects that I'm going to share. The first being a handspun yarn. I finished the green merino that I was working on in the last podcast. So if you go back and watch episode 2, I was working on a green merino yarn, or spinning on fiber per se, and it was dyed by a bee mice elf who is no longer dyeing, but there are amazing hand dyers out there, and I'll talk about another one a little bit later in the episode. But it was a beautiful green, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. And I use just like a baker's twine or a butcher's twine to tie up my skeins, and keep them tidy. I don't mind that it's different from the yarn itself, but super happy with how this turned out. It's an amazing color. Usually I spin yarn in a semi-woolen type fashion, and that tends to create really fluffy, floofy, squishy yarns, and I wanted something a little bit denser, a little bit more sturdy this time around, so I added more twist to my initial single, and then when I was plying that single back on itself, because I like to do the chain ply. So chain ply or Navajo ply is where you take one single of yarn and ply it back on itself so that it creates a 3-ply. And it's kind of like a big slip knot that you just keep pulling through itself while you're twisting into the ply. But I'll get into that in a different episode. But sometimes I do a traditional 3-ply, which is where you take 3 separate singles and ply them together. But I more often than not will do the chain ply, just because it uses up all of the fiber on my bobbins, and that way I don't have to worry about making sure that they're equal or even, and it uses it all up. But really, again, happy with how it turned out. 260-ish yards of a DK weight yarn, and I think I'm going to use it in some sort of colorwork fashion again. I'm really happy with how my throwover turned out, that pullover, where I used the hand spun as the colorwork portion. So I think I might do that again. But I finished that, and am super excited to use it and add that to my hand spun cube. So yeah, that was my first finished object for the week. With everything going on, I didn't have a ton of time to craft and play around with the needle and fiber arts, but I'll have a lot more to share in the next episode, including some spinning and maybe even some hand embroidery. But moving on to my second finished object, and that is my throwover sweater, which turned out awesome. I haven't wet blocked it yet. I tend to wet block all of my knits for the most part instead of steam block. I did give it a little bit of steam just so it laid a little bit nicer so I could show it off in the podcast, but super happy with how it turned out. I'll go in to the modifications that I made or the modifications that I make for sweaters to fit my body type in a separate episode. I'm going to try and get into a little more of the tutorial type episodes or the separate videos. So I'll have a really kind of in-depth video about sweater knitting and how to make garments fit your body shape or body type. But yeah, super fun. Really happy with how this turned out. Love the colorwork portion. Again, that was 3 separate hand spuns, and the main color, the body of the sweater was knit out of a Jill Draper Empire skein, and it was a 100% Rambouillet naturally dyed in this beautiful kind of gray taupe color. So super excited with that. Love the way it turned out. I did add a few extra rows in between each colorwork portion, just to lengthen the yoke a little bit so it fit a little bit nicer in my underarm and give me a little bit more room there. I added a few extra rows in the collar as well to bring it up a little bit higher. And then I bound off tighter and knit my cuffs tighter on the edge of my sleeves because I tend to roll up my sleeves in any sweater I'm wearing, whether it be handmade or store-bought. So I wanted it to be a little bit tighter. That way when I pushed my sleeves up, it didn't stretch out too much and it stayed kind of nice and snug. But again, all personal preference, personal style. So I knit this sweater with my good friend Kathy. She knit one as well. And so we kind of had our own little knit along, which was super fun, really great to work on that together. And we're actually going to be working on something else together that I'll share with you in a moment. But so this is the Throwover Pullover by Andrea Mowry, and you can find that in the show notes as well. Moving on to works in progress. I have 2 to share with you this week. The first being the fiber that I purchased that I showed off in the last episode from Wound Up Fiber Arts. I started spinning that and it is absolutely dreamy. It is amazing to spin. The fiber prep is phenomenal for anyone who's a hand spinner or uses fiber in their knitting. It is beautifully dyed. Highly recommend. So that's Wound Up Fiber Arts, and she usually has shop updates every Saturday, I believe. And so I got this fiber, which is a 90% superwash merino, 10% nylon. It's on her super sock fiber base, and the color is nest egg. So I have about half an ounce left of my first braid, and I've been working on spinning a heavier single of that. So you can see there's, try and get it to focus, there we go. There's an overall kind of robin seggy blue color, and there's a little bit of gold, some of this purplish gray, and I just love it. Some of the greens, so it kind of looks like that in the fiber form, and then here it is in the single. So I'm going to take this and spin up the other braid of it the same way and do a 2-ply, hoping to get kind of a sport to DK weight out of it. I tend to be a unintentional spinner, so I don't usually spin with projects in mind unless it's a sock weight yarn that I'm trying to achieve, just because to me, personally, spinning yarn and buying the fiber and using the hand spun is separate hobbies. Kind of like buying yarn and using the yarn is a separate hobby. But yeah, so I've been working on that, and it's been a dream to spin, and I hope to share that next time. It's so fun. The next thing I've been working on is the So Basic Sweater by Maxim Sear. The delightful Max of Les Garçons, him and his partner Vincent, is I believe dyed by Dells, and they often do a lot of great collections and have awesome patterns to share and amazing yarn. So what's fun about this sweater is it has a pattern template for a little pocket, and I might actually either omit the pocket, which is leather in this version, or maybe even do a fun fabric pocket. I'm not quite sure yet what I'm going to do, but that's the So Basic Sweater by Maxim Sear. I am knitting mine out of Plucky Primo Sock, which is a Merino cashmere nylon base, and it's about 400 yards. I got this yarn on a D-stash, so it's in kind of their older base, so I think it's changed a little bit, but it's in the You Jump, I Jump, Remember colorway, which is a Titanic theme, and I love it. It is this deep, deep navy blue, almost black. The color is actually showing up really well on the camera, and it's an amazing fingering weight pullover. It's got this great ribbing down the sleeve that kind of fades into the cuff, and just a really great wardrobe staple. I will definitely make many, many more of these. You can see it's been in my project bag a little while. It's got a little crease in it, but yeah, I'm on the second sleeve and just picked up the stitches, and I've got the majority of my fourth ball left. I bought just enough to make the sweater, so hopefully I don't run out because I can't get the color matched perfectly. I do have another skein of it, and if need be, I can always rip out the cuffs and knit those in the separate color. But it's just a beautiful, deep, deep, deep blue, black, navy. Really excited the way it's turning out, and can't wait to finish that up again for when the weather's cooler. I definitely wear a lot of lighter weight sweaters, especially in the fall and winter, for work, and I think this is going to be a fun piece to just have for casual wear. So that is the So Basic Sweater by Maxim Sear. And one little trick that I do for my sleeves on my sweater, some people like to knit them two at a time. I tend to do them one at a time just because, to me, two at a time knitting can sometimes be a little bit putzier and a little more time consuming. I knit them one at a time, but every 10 rows I will put in one of the removable stitch markers. That way I can keep track of how many rows I did in my decreasing or increasing until I got to a point where I just knit straight until the very end. But that's one way that I keep track of making my sleeves end up both the same length. Just a fun little trick that I do. Then, moving on to future works in progress, things that I'm going to be casting on this week are the Slipped Rib Hat by Jody Brown of Mrs. Brown's Bags and the Grocery Girls. She just came out with a super fun, super awesome pattern. It is knit with a DK weight yarn and a mohair, and the slip stitch pattern kind of helps accentuate the mohair color, and it's a super fun, super great textured hat that I will definitely be making a few of, but I'm going to start with this color combo. So I think that's going to be super fun. This is the Dyed by Dell's DK, which is a superwash merino in the Chris's Pines colorway, and then this is just a kid silk. So it's a 70% mohair, 30% silk that I'll be using to hold with it, and I think that'll be super fun. I'm loving the greens lately, and excited to start knitting with some more of that. Green is one of my favorite colors, and I don't have enough of it in my wardrobe, but I love to wear it. And fun fact, because I'm full of random fun facts, something else that I learned in a psychology course of mine is that the human eye can detect more shades of green than any other color, and that's due to the rods and cones in your eyes that absorb and deflect light, and the wavelengths that the green spectrum of light is on. So I'm not going to dive too much into the weeds of that, but it's just a super fun random fact. So yeah, so that's a fun pattern that I'll be working on as well. I also saw, and this is the pattern that I'll be knitting with my good friend Kathy, the Fleur Shawl by Espace Tricot came out, and the pattern sales benefited an organization. I believe it was a women's shelter, and so super happy to help support that. And it's a really fun shawl that has these bobble rows that are knit in a Surrey alpaca. I suppose you could use a mohair instead, but I bought one of the kits that Espostrico had on the website out of Lobby Anime, and I've never used their yarns before, so I'm excited to try that. But it is in one of my favorite color combos, so it's in a Grello. So this is actually a DK. It's 100% superwash merino, 252 yards, and the colorway is Grello. And it's got these awesome navy speckles in it, and these great navy sections that kind of help pop the alpaca. So there's kind of a better view of the skein, and you can see some of the blue right there a little bit better. Super soft, really fun color. So that's going to be the main color of the shawl, and then the contrast is going to be Surrey alpaca, which I have not used before in this application, and it is 74% baby Surrey alpaca and 26% silk. Super fun, really great. Another deep navy that I think is going to be fun, kind of pop in those bobble rows in that shawl. So Kathy and I will be starting that soon. That was part of a new purchase, and then another purchase that I had because A, it's Pride Month, B, I love rainbows, and C, anytime Chelsea Pearls has an update, anytime Christine is dyeing some new awesome yarn, I have to get my hands on some of it because it's just stunning. It's in this great package, so I'm going to try and not crinkle it too much. So forgive me if it's kind of crinkly or loud. But it is an amazing rainbow kit. She had dyed up a few of them previously, and they were a little bit different colors, but super fun. Have no idea what I'm going to do with it, as I don't with most of the yarn that I purchase, but I might do a fun shawl, or even use that in a yoke portion and just kind of fade it into a simple pullover. Not entirely sure, but it's a beautiful, beautiful kit, so I was excited to get that. And that is all I have to share. Oh, I actually have a non-yarn crafty knitting related purchase that I made. One of my favorite candle companies on the planet is Wax and Wool, and they came out with this amazing scent, lemon and juniper, and it is so good. So I've been burning that every couple of days. And what I love about the Wax and Wool candles is you can leave these burning for hours, and the scent is light. It is refreshing. They're not overwhelming or overpowering like a lot of candles can be. So it's just a nice little fragrance in the background. And so that is Wax and Wool, and you can find Kirsty's shop on Etsy. She often does different collections for the seasons, and this has been one of my favorite ones for spring, summer so far. So that's waxandwool.com. And now on to the shop news, the Etsy shop update. I had previously had an Etsy shop under the name A Simpler Home, so I made project bags and all sorts of fun, like lip balms and soaps and just anything you could think of. And I've kind of changed that a little bit as I've rebranded myself a little bit and kind of gotten a little bit further into the things that I enjoy and that I want. So I have reopened officially the Etsy shop under the Bearded Purl name, and right now there are some really fun bags in the shop. And one thing that I'm really excited to share with all of you is that for every 5% of the sales for profits in the Etsy shop every month, I will be donating that 5% to a nonprofit or charitable organization that is aimed at either a humanitarian issue, environmental, animal, something probably global more so than the local. But the first charity that I have chosen to donate for the month of June is Fierce, which is a organization based out of New York City that is aimed at supporting, educating, and empowering LGBTQ youth, specifically LGBTQ youth of color. So really excited to be able to tie that in and donate that portion of the sales to that organization this month. So without further ado, I'm going to show you the bags that are in the shop. The first one that I've got is, sticking with the B-E-E kind, I love bees, and so I found all of these awesome, fun fabrics, and I hope that you enjoy them as much as I do. But so the first bag is this is what I call the shawl size. So it comfortably holds 3 to 400 gram skeins of yarn. Um, yeah, I would say three to 400 gram skeins of yarn in your projects. Even sweater works in progress, but this is the first pattern that I have, and it is all of these fun gardening animals. So there's cats, hedgehogs, rabbits, and they're gardening and planting seeds and beekeeping. So super, super fun. And it's got that great navy background, that base color. All of my bags now have zipper pulls. It's just a super handy way to make sure that they easily open and close. And then I've changed them up a little bit, so I made all of my bags a little bit bigger. And I use an interfacing that's a little bit on the stiffer side, because when I set my project bag on the ground or on the counter, or next to me on the couch, I want it to be able to stand up a little bit and not fall over or have the yarn get caught in it. So um, yeah, so I made a few modifications to our bags, but really excited to share them with you all. And all of my bags are fully lined, and they are seamed. So let me open that up and show you. So they have a hidden seam in the bottom, and that I sew closed by hand after I turn out the bags. But really excited. So I have this. This is my shawl size, and that is the gardening animals bag. Let me show you. I have a new and improved sweater size. So that is the sweater size version of it, and this comfortably holds 7 or more skeins of yarn plus your project. So that's the shawl size, and that's the sweater size, and both of those are in the shop right now. I also have a sweater and shawl bag, and I've got a few of each, so don't feel like you're gonna miss out. But I probably won't do any more runs of these prints right now, just because we're getting into summer and I have some really fun summer things planned. But so I also have the bee skeps on this great smoky blue background with little bees. So I have that in the shawl and the sweater size as well. And then from the same collection of fabrics, I also have a shawl and sweater size, and this is more gardening themed, a little bit brighter, but still on a great neutral base of that lighter blue. But it's got the watering cans that are kind of hidden in there amongst the flowers, and just a really fun kind of graphic pattern. And all of my bags are lined with an unbleached muslin, just because it's simple and it's easy. See, I haven't sewn this one closed yet, but um, it's bright and it's easy to clean. So all of the bags are, I would recommend spot or dry clean. And then if at any point they get wrinkled or crumpled up, or there's a seam in them, just take a little bit of steam to an iron them a little bit, and then that should go away. And they should lay nice and flat again. But yeah, super excited to share all of these with you. Then I also have a fun knitting themed one that is on a gray background, and it is these amazing, and I have this in the shawl and sweater as well. It's this amazing fun sheep that are in hand knits, knitting. There's balls of yarn and sheep, and it's just super cute, super fun. Really excited about that one as well. Again, the sweater and the shawl bag. And I have lots of really, really awesome fun fabrics and ideas to put in the shop for the next update, and I'm really excited to get the Etsy shop open again and to be able to use that as a way to give back in the community. I think that's really important. So all of those bags are now in the Etsy shop, and you can find a link to that in the description box on YouTube. You can also find links to that in Ravelry and on Instagram. A couple of people, speaking of Instagram, people asked, how did I get my name close to Amish? And it's an interesting story. And this is for my personal Instagram. It started off as a school project where I was doing a research paper on the Amish lifestyle and how that has evolved in the last few hundred years with the evolution of technology and a fast-paced lifestyle. And that in conjunction with my personal life and beliefs, where I always tend to um, do things with a simpler mind in anything that I choose. So as far as like cooking, baking, sewing, I do a lot of stuff kind of the old-fashioned way, or do a lot of these things that kind of slow me down and get me the opportunity to think and appreciate the hard work that has gone into something as simple as a hand-knit hat or a loaf of bread. And a few people had said, "Oh my gosh, you're pretty darn close to Amish, aren't you?" So the name just kind of stuck, and it kind of went with the project, and I just haven't changed it since. But that is kind of the story behind that name. But so all that stuff is in the Etsy shop, and I'm really excited to have that open again. Um, this is a little bit shorter of an episode this week, and I hope to be recording again in the next 2 weeks. Now that I'm at full time again with my job, we'll see how that goes. But um, as always, if there's any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below in the comment section. Reach out on Ravelry. I am going to have a really fun, awesome giveaway on Ravelry because so many wonderful people have subscribed and joined the Bearded Purl community, which I welcome all and am excited to share this journey with you. That we went from 100 subscribers and viewers to 3,000 in no time, and I am just totally overwhelmed with the love and kindness and generosity that you have all shown me, and I'm so excited to be able to share this journey with you all. But so what I'm going to have is in the Ravelry group, I'm going to have a giveaway thread opened up, and in that thread, I want you, for your entry, to be able to tell me something that brings you pride, brings you joy. June is Pride Month, and I am a proud gay man myself. So if it's a project that you're working on that brings you pride, something that you're making for someone that you're proud of, if you're using it in rainbow yarn or rainbow colors or whatever that means to you, or even pride-specific things, use that as your entry, and I will leave that open for a while, and then I'm going to choose 3 giveaway winners and give away some of my favorite project bags, favorite yarn, patterns, coffee, tea, chocolates, just some of my favorite things that I'm proud of to share with you all, and can't wait to get that giveaway started. So be sure to follow along on YouTube, subscribe if any of these things I talked about today bring you pride or joy or were helpful, and that I hope you enjoyed it. It was nice to get back and chat with you all and share some of the things I've been working on and some of the things that we've been doing here around the house. And yes, Justin will be appearing on the podcast at some point. Um, I know many of you have been asking, our schedules just haven't quite aligned when I'm doing recording. So hopefully one of these days we'll be able to get him on and share what he's working on with you as well. He is also an avid knitter and crafter and um, great in the kitchen as well. So we share a lot of the same hobbies and interests, and I hope to get him on soon. um, but without all of this going on in the world, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that thought, but super excited again to be able to join you all this week. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and take the time to do the learning and experience the conversations and all of the things that we need to be doing to creating a better place for us and our loved ones and our communities and our children. And yeah, just remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I'll see you next time.